Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Guna Fanzine podcast. Seems like me and Freddie keep missing each other because it's another episode where we're not on the same one at the same time. We just seem to be busy on different weeks. But me and Izzy are here today, and we're going to talk about Arsenal. First of all, dominating Leicester 5-1 in the recent WSL match, obviously ahead of a huge first leg that they've got against Lyon this weekend. I just said to you, I feel like it's crazy that the Lyon game has come around so quickly because we were talking about it a few weeks back, previewing it, and now we're about to hit that first leg in a couple of days' time. But obviously, before that, the Leicester game, goals from Caitlin Ford, Stina Blackstenius, Beth Mead, and of course, a return goal for Victoria Pelova sealed the win for the Gunners. And then Leicester obviously got that consolation goal as well. It was a huge performance, wasn't it, from the team? Obviously, setting the tone for a huge game on Saturday and still really important in the grand scheme of points in the WSL. Obviously, Arsenal missing key players, no Daphne Van Domselaar, Alessia Russo, and obviously Chloe Kelly. I wanted to start with the performance. Obviously, Renee praised the team and said coming back in that first game after the international break in this obviously important block, it can be quite difficult. But what did you obviously make of the performance? And does anyone kind of stand out to you as a key player?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good performance. I think it was a good opponent to have with those players missing. I think because I think it was a bit everyone felt a little bit more confident going in, and those players that stood in, it's not like that they're worse players than the ones that just haven't been regular in the starting 11 this season. So I was definitely interested beforehand to see how that would work with a slightly different combination, and it did work well. It was great to see Stina playing for a whole 90 minutes. I think my standout players were just the standout players of most weeks. I thought Emily Fox was great, and as was Mariona Caldente. We were sort of chatting in the press box about trying to come up with sort of headlines about Emily Fox outfoxing the Foxes, which I actually forgot to put into anything, but I thought she was good. It was just there was just so many 50-50s where she'd sort of start from behind and she'd always catch up and get to the ball, and she's just so nice to watch. And because it was a bit quieter, we had from the side that I was sitting on, there was no fans in front of us. We could really hear and sort of focus in on the players, especially coming down that side. So saw a lot of Emily Fox, and Mariona in that deeper role. I think she's starting to, well, she's always been quite comfortable there, but she looks like she's really settled into it. And working well with Kim Little in the middle there. And she, I think she wants to score goals, she said, but she still can from that position. She had quite a few chances against Leicester that unfortunately didn't score, but we didn't really need a sixth goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's looking really good in that role, and I think that will be quite important so that she's a bit more defensive against a team like Lyon with such a strong front three as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was so hard to kind of select who the player of the match was going to be. I mean, you couldn't really fault anyone on the pitch. Everyone put in a shift, and it's starting to become quite regular that we struggle to pick the key players. A lot of pretty much everyone in the team is performing, and it's that unit that obviously Renee is building, and the team connections there on the pitch. But I think the big talking point obviously from the game, there's lots to discuss, but Palova's first goal back, obviously the crowd absolutely loved that one. I was there front row in block 15 enjoying that one, and obviously such a great reception for her at the Emirates, and the whole celebration, the team celebrating with her. What is touch on Palova, because obviously she's now returning back from injury, they're managing minutes, but she could probably play quite a key role in the rest of Arsenal's season and beyond that. So how do you kind of see that playing out? And do you think it'll be kind of from the bench, or maybe she'll cement her place back in this side?
Yeah, I mean, she came on at half time in this Leicester game, which was the most minutes we've seen her play since coming back from her injury. And a great match to come back and play in, sort of not as much pressure, nice pitch, all the right circumstances to play 45 minutes. And I thought she did really well. Her fitness looks good. She's already linking up well with the team players like Mariona, who she hasn't really played with before, apart from in the kind of couple of minutes she's come on for in the last few games. And I know she said that she was really excited to eventually end up playing with Mariona, and they thought they worked really well together. And also with Leah Valti as well coming on at half time. They've obviously played together quite a bit in the past. So it looks like she's just kind of slotted back into her old ways, which is obviously really positive. Seems to have come back quite quickly from this injury and to be at quite a high standard already. So I'm really hoping that we do see her as quite a key part of the rest of the season. We've obviously got some big Champions League fixtures and then three more WSL matches. And I think she'll be really useful in all of those. Off the bench, particularly, I think she could make quite an impact as a sub because she's quite good in defence and she can attack as well. So depending on what Renee feels is needed for each individual match, I think she could definitely kind of bring something to the side.
Yeah, I think we said a few weeks back, Renee's got that problem, the positive problem at the moment that now she's got too many midfielders, or she's got a wide variety of midfielders who all bring something different and can offer something different. And I think, like you say, she can utilise those against different opponents in different moments. And I'm excited to see. I quite enjoyed watching her with Kyra Cooney-Cross as well. Obviously, she came back in and played some minutes as a substitute. So it's great to see, like you say, linking up with lots of different players. And obviously, we've got some fantastic young players in there as well who are developing. So yeah, it's so good to see her back, and obviously on the score sheet as well, which she's kind of ventured in here and there. But lastly, I wanted to touch on Stina Blackstenius, obviously coming back in. We kind of expected that with Russo's injury. You were there obviously at the Emirates for the Gooner, and you spoke to Renee about Stina's performance and her role, not just in this game but beyond. And she said the way she goes back and defends, and how else she works in counter pressure, and then of course her physical profile, how strong and fast she is. She can impact so much. I think she brought a lot to our game today. What did you kind of think of Stina being out? She was presented with that opportunity with the Russo injury. We've seen her come in and out, play in some games and then come on as a substitute. But she did a nice little celebration and sort of kissed the badge slightly. It was quite a good performance from her, I thought. But how do you kind of see her role coming out for the rest of the season? Obviously, depending on the Russo injury, but she might actually have more of a role to play than we maybe envisioned before the injury.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've really not seen a lot of her at all in recent fixtures, and she was quite a key player last season, so I've been quite surprised by that. But I think it's just down to the fact that Russo's been in such good form that it's just kind of left no space or opportunity for Stina to then come on. And we've obviously had a lot of occasions where Stina's been offside quite a lot, and it's not been as reliable as Russo has been. And I think, on Tuesday night, she scored that goal, which was great, and I think she was kind of lining up to take a shot. We knew everyone kind of knew she'd get on the score sheet at some point. She then did have a lot of other chances, and I'd just spoken to Renee about players stepping in who haven't necessarily had regular minutes, and that kind of led me on to ask her about Stina and sort of saying how she'd missed these chances. Is that because of this lack of game time, or her confidence isn't so high, for example? But Renee actually put it quite nicely in a way that I hadn't really thought of about her presence off the ball, which is what you've just said, the quote. But I think a lot of time fans and people focus on people's contributions on the ball, especially a striker who's supposed to be scoring goals. But yeah, she is physical. She's tall. She's got a lot of speed, and she is very useful in those off-ball situations. So I think it was really nice that Renee highlighted those strengths. And perhaps maybe because she's identified those strengths, she can find a slightly different role for Stina to slot into, where she can use those if we're going to be having Russo as a more regular striker, and if she does come back from her injury, perhaps maybe more similar to what happened with Beth Mead moving out wide when Miedemar came in. She sort of moved from the traditional nine position to a bit wider, and she seems to really enjoy that now. Perhaps something with Stina like that could be an option for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of when Russo obviously first joined Arsenal, and a lot of people were kind of saying, the goals weren't coming as often as we thought, and we were actually saying, look at the role that she's playing, and she was obviously playing quite deep, and we were trying to figure that out and what role she would play, and obviously she's slotted in and is scoring more goals now. And obviously that's something that Arsenal have worked on with her. But yeah, that's a really interesting point, and I'm excited to kind of see what the future holds for Stina. Obviously, we don't know what happens beyond this season, but I definitely think, especially managing minutes with Russo, potentially with this injury, and not knowing if she's going to come back, hopefully this can be something positive for Stina. And you know that an injury, as awful it is, can present an opportunity for another player to come through and
Yeah.
yeah, really prove themselves. But yeah, so obviously after that game, Arsenal now just 3 points behind Chelsea in second, which is crazy. Obviously, Chelsea have the game in hand, but we now have a better goal difference as well. So we've come a long way from the gap that we once saw, and it seems like Arsenal are on form at the minute in another level. It's 7 games now at home that we've scored more than 4 goals. We're not struggling to get on the score sheet, something we struggled with a lot last season, but we can obviously see how the rest of the season plays out. We will of course go on to Lyon. I just wanted to obviously say congratulations Arsenal women under 21s who have just sealed the league title. So they're 4 points clear of Manchester United, and they've got 1 game remaining. So they're going to lift the silverware at home next week after their final game of the season against Durham. Freddie has covered the entire thing on the Guna website, so you can go and check that out. It's got all the important details, all the key players, the key moments, and we know obviously the Arsenal Academy plays such a big role in the women's team, and we have so many talented players coming through the academy as well. So it's great to see that, and obviously great to see them getting the victory there. But yeah, obviously I wanted to touch on that Lyon game. This is the big one. As much as the WSL is obviously still up for grabs officially, I think the Champions League is the big one, and it seems like one that the fans and obviously the players as well are aware of. Interesting quote from the Leicester City head coach, which I wanted to start with. She was obviously asked, questioned quite a lot, as you said in the press conference about Lyon. Obviously, she coached in France, so interesting to see how her thoughts on that, because she's obviously come up against Lyon many times, and she said, I feel if you ask me right now, overall Arsenal are the better team. Lyon focus too much on individuals. If you block those individuals, you can stop their chance at scoring. Such a positive that Arsenal got to play that game against Leicester before obviously coming back from the international break. But let's obviously think about that. What do you think that kind of means, and how are Arsenal gonna deal with this game against Lyon? Obviously, it's going to be a tougher test probably than Leicester, but is he expecting there'll be similarities potentially with this game, or is it going to be a case of Arsenal having to adapt again and find a new way to break down a team with such talented individuals, like she's saying, but also maybe Arsenal can punish them as well?
Yeah, so Renee was kind of saying afterwards, after the game on Tuesday as well, that there's a very few similarities between Leicester and Lyon, but there are a few. So
Yeah.
that was, that was something that she had felt was a positive as an opponent before the Lyon game. But yes, that the Lyon manager Amandine Michael, she'd said kind of Arsenal's better as like a team unit, I think is kind of what she meant, rather than like a better squad. I think, she was kind of going for that better, more cohesive and more together, which I think is quite often what we see with English teams versus the European football, where they have these kind of big individual stars who they sort of rely on to make these big moments, and they do, which we've got with this Lyon front three, very strong, fast, and sort of love to score goals. So that's something that we'll have to be aware of on Saturday. Really strong defensive line. I think it will be important for our defenders and sort of Williamson and Catley, who I imagine it will be in that centre back pairing, to kind of stay in that deeper role, which I noticed in the first half of the Leicester game they were staying back a bit further. Normally they do like to go up and get involved, but then that leaves such a big space behind. And so I think it'll be really important to kind of stay strong and keep that back line sturdy and ready for any of those counterattacks or attacks from those forwards at Lyon. But yeah, I mean it's a huge game. I think there's going to be a really good attendance. I'm sure you can kind of shed some light on all the fan activities that are happening beforehand. But yeah, I think it's going to be really big, and I think we've seen Arsenal rise to these big occasions before. There's a good vibe at the club at the moment. The men doing amazingly last night again. I think there's this big focus on the Champions League for both teams and at the club, and I think yeah, it's something that I'm really looking forward to.
Absolutely, and I think the challenge obviously is the home leg being first, and obviously when we played Madrid, we know we could go back home and potentially turn the deficit around. But the first leg obviously taking place this Saturday, it's 12:30 p.m. kickoff, and then we're going to Lyon the following Sunday, the 27th of April. That's 5 p.m. kickoff. Obviously, home leg at the Emirates, you touched on it there. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. I know they're thinking of fan walks, getting there nice and early, building the atmosphere just like it was against Madrid. Obviously, slightly different because it's happening in the middle of the day rather than the night under the lights, like we talked about a few weeks back. But I definitely still think there's a huge role for the crowd to play. Obviously, if Arsenal can go into that game a few goals up or going into that second leg, if they can even hold off, from being down, and Lyon getting any goals on the score sheet, it's going to be a huge advantage. But a different kind of test for Arsenal, having to obviously do it the other way around. They're going into this home leg. They know that at the moment, it's 0-0. They're not having to prove anything like they did against Madrid. Do you think that will kind of affect the way that they manage the game? Are they going to try and go in and kind of get a few goals at home, or are they just going to try and play their football and see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I think a bit of both probably. I think it'll be about making their mark of how they're going to kind of attack these two legs by showing Leon how they play and what, what they and having a clear game plan. I think it would be amazing if there could be a clean sheet going into that second leg, because then all the pressure goes back onto Lyon. But yeah, do worry a little bit without Van Domselaar. Zinsberg is great, and she is one of the best number twos that any of the other clubs have. So and she's done this before. She played a lot last season. I spoke about this last week, but and hopefully she'll really rise to the occasion. And Renee did say she's got a lot of support around her, and everyone's really encouraging her. She's a mature player. She's been in these situations, so she should be able to rise to that. But yeah, I think a clean sheet would be great, and definitely some goals. I mean, I'm hoping Russo and Kelly will be back. Renee kind of teased it at the end of her press conference. She said that it's almost there, but I think she's also trying not to give too much away to Lyon. But we'll find out information tomorrow in her press conference. So fingers crossed for that, and they'll be really wanting to play that game themselves. I mean, no one wants to miss out on these huge opportunities. So yeah, I think it's just about being solid in all areas of the pitch and just not kind of showing our cards too much to them, and not letting them take advantage of us on home turf. But yeah, the crowd getting behind it will make so much difference as well.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, we don't know the likes of Renee's quite secretive when it comes to these things. Like you say, she may go into the press conference tomorrow and just not give anything away about either of those players. She has done that before. She obviously teased a little bit about Van Domselaar as well, kind of saying it might be 6 weeks, it might be before. So it's very likely that you're going to learn absolutely nothing tomorrow and
Mm.
just see what happens on Saturday. But even so, integrating Russo and Kelly back into that squad, maybe it's on the bench and kind of keeping the cohesiveness of the team that we saw that playing it against Leicester and kind of building on that. Obviously, yeah, like we say, it is a tougher challenge, but there's definitely still connections all over the pitch, even with those players that are coming in. You've got so much on the bench. We didn't even obviously touch on Katie Reid, who came on, and so many other players that we were able to rotate and rest players, and so it's really worked in our favour to be able to play that game as well. But yeah, huge classic against Lyon. Don't miss it, Emirates this Saturday, 12:30. You're going to be there covering it for the Gooner, so obviously keep an eye on all the amazing content that we're putting out on the Gooner, and keep your eye on for a big announcement on Friday for the next print edition of the Gooner, which we are going to be selling on the day. So it's going to be a huge occasion, just like the Madrid game. And we need the support. We know how much home advantage plays a key role in giving Arsenal that boost and hopefully getting the win, because we don't kind of want to be going into that second leg down a goal or two. So huge game, and lots of other important games coming up as well in the WSL. So thanks for joining me, Izzy, and fingers crossed we can have a huge performance from the Arsenal and hopefully get that win.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, I'll be there on Saturday, live blog, Twitter, and Susie will be there taking some amazing photos as well. So yeah, we'll bring you some information from the press conferences tomorrow. Hopefully, we learn something from Renee, but also quite exciting if she keeps it secret. So yeah, we'll see everyone on Saturday.
Yeah,
Thanks, Dave.
looking forward to it.